Hey, what's up guys, Autofanatic. So today I'm going to do a review on a 2021, pretty much a base model, all-wheel drive Giulia, Alfa Romeo Giulia. This is called the Sprint all-wheel drive. This is a 2021, so I'm going to give you guys a little overview, show you some of the exterior. This car is in white and it has the narrow package, which gives you a really nice designed wheel, 18-inch, 18x8s all around, and an all-season tire. You get the black mirror caps. You also get the black front V grille, as you see there. And there's only other treatment you get on the black narrow edition is the black Giulia badge back here. And then you got the black Q4 as well. So if you look at the car, this is just the bare bones of my Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. It still has the Giorgio platform. It doesn't have all the fancy adaptive shocks. It doesn't have the aluminum rear subframe. But the bare bones of the car is exactly the same as the Giulia Quadrifoglio and the Stelvio Quadrifoglio. So this one's finished in black and red. This particular car, I really like this. This is a textured, grained aluminum trim in black. I actually really like that a lot. The seats on the car, these are the base seats. So there's not a lot of bolstering. There are power adjusted, but they're a little tricky to get, comfortable. But with the red interior, you can see here, it's the same color interior as my Stelvio TI Sport. Now, one of the big differences that they made, they got rid of the sliding cup holder cover. Like on my car, you push it and it slides over. So now you have a USB port here. You have a 12 volt. Another thing that they changed was the entire shifter assembly. So this is hand stitched and cross stitched in leather, which is really nice. And they got rid of that soft touch big black plastic trim, and they have a black piano finish plastic trim here with the parking brake button. And this is a little cubby you could put your key. I don't really think this is needed, but that's what they did. And also, again, we have the nicely textured aluminum finish. Now in the armrest, it's a little bit different than the earlier cars. You actually have a compartment here where you could put your phone for a charging station. So you can put your phone in there. You have your USB, your auxiliary, and everything here if you want to connect iPods or any kind of devices into your car for the audio system. So other than that, everything on the car is pretty much the same. Now, another thing that they did, and I'm going to show you guys quickly, so you could pretty much swipe throughout the panel like this, which I think is pretty cool. So you got your driver's assistance, you got your climate control, you also get performance pages. The only thing is, to go back to the main menu, it's a little bit of a lag. So here you have oil, you have boost, you have torque, which is pretty cool. I actually wish my car had that. But that's just some of the little updates that they did on these cars, was that they integrated a little bit more infotainment. Everything is pretty much a carryover. It still has, the same nice sporty feel, nice ergonomic, and it's got the start-stop button. And like I said, this car, a lot of you guys that watch my Alfa Romeo content have been asking me for a while, like, hey, what do you think of the base model? I love your Quadrifoglio, but I can't afford it. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is definitely a really good option for anybody that wants to really get into this platform and the Alfa Romeo brand. Now, I'm going to pull up the window sticker before we go for a drive. This is a 2021 Alfa Romeo Giulia Sprint all-wheel drive. Now, the base price is $41,450. As tested, it's $44,445. Now, the only optional equipment you see here is the Sprint all-wheel drive Nero Edition package. So like I showed you there, for $1,700 you get the mirror caps, you get the badges, you get the monochromatic trim, you get Sirius satellite radio, you get the 18-inch dark double Y-spoke aluminum wheels. I actually think these wheels, if they were 20-inch, they would look really awesome on a Stelvio or a Giulia Quadrifoglio. And it's got 3-piece shipping protective cover, owner's manual, 1-year trial. I'm not really sure what they're talking about there. But other than that, this has the same 2-liter, 280 horsepower, inline turbocharged 4, and it's got the ZF 8-speed automatic. But this transmission is a different variant than the Quadrifoglio models. But like I said, it's still the bare bones and the same foundation as the Giulia Quadrifoglio. And I think for 44 grand, after you guys hear how I talk about how this car drives and feels, I think this is really going to be a great option. And what I mean by that is, a lot of you guys could go out there and buy one of these or lease it between the high $300 a month range to the low $400 a month range. That is highly competitive between anything from Infiniti, Honda, Acura, Audi, any of the other cars out there. A lot of cars like BMW, Mercedes, for a similar equipped model, you'll be in the 500, high fives, even low 6 range, depending on when you lease the car and what incentives. But Alfa Romeo is doing some really good incentives on these cars. And I think if you are into, maybe personalization, if you want to personalize it more, get yourself a base model like this, do a set of KW coilovers, do a tune, do an exhaust, custom set of wheels and tires, and you're gonna have one hell of a pleasurable car. It's gonna be really nice and, you know, tailored and individualized exactly the way you like it. So let's go for a little bit of ride, and I'll talk to you guys exactly how this car drives and feels. I think that's what a lot of you guys watch my content on, especially when it comes to, you know, car reviews and Alfa Romeo in general. The one thing that I do notice from driving the earlier versions of this car is I think they did something with soundproofing. Either it's better insulation on the glass, or it's more insulation in the foam of the carpeting and everything else, because the car feels much more, you know, smoother, quieter, more luxury than prior versions. So that's just a little bit of an update if anybody out there is interested or is shopping for a used version of this car. The one thing I notice too on this car is the handling. The handling is superb. Now, even though we're on, I call them rinky dink, they're only 225 you know, 18x8 tires and wheels, but if you go back 20 or 30 years, that seemed like a big tire and big contact patch compared to what we have today. But, you know, like I said, they're not staggered. It's the same size all around because it's all-wheel drive, which is not a big deal, but the car has the 4-piston Brembo brakes in the front, single piston in the back, but you could still possibly buy upgraded rotors, you know, cross-drilled, slotted, aftermarket, do some upgraded pads. We'll take this road over here. Now, this particular car does not have the paddles. Now, we're in dynamic mode now, and this does not have race mode. The base models and this engine does not come in race mode. But the one thing you feel now with the all-wheel drive and the Giorgio platform is that you feel everything that's going on with the chassis. It doesn't feel vague. It doesn't feel like any of these new BMWs with the front ends are so over-assisted and you don't really know what's going on. But the one thing that I'll tell you how this car drives, if anybody out there watches this knows some older cars, this car reminds me of an old school Mercedes C-Class and an old school BMW 3 Series. I'm talking BMW 3 Series E46 and the Mercedes C202 C-Class. That's what this car feels like, except much better, much more refined, and much better steering, because the cars back in the days, they didn't have the best steering setups. You know, they were just adequate for their times, but I tell you what they did on this platform, this steering is some of the best you're going to get. And I don't really know too many cars, even coming out of the higher end ones from Germany, that have a front end that feels this direct and this connected. And that's really what you want, because the better that the car handles, the more you know what's going on, that's more safety that's built into the chassis as far as a panic stop and a panic maneuver, when the car is going to keep you planted on the road, and no matter what you're going to do, it's going to keep you and your occupants safe in bad weather and in, you know, panic situations. I dropped my car off today. If you guys follow my content, I had the issue again with the water coming into the cabin, so they're going to change some parts. They actually know what's wrong with it. Their little flapper motor that's on that side of the HVAC, they said that there's an actuator or something that's just malfunctioning, so they're going to replace that. And they're also going to address the fuel rail sensor. If you guys watch my content, you guys know what I'm talking about, where the car goes into limp mode when I drive the crap out of it, and it's quarter a tank or less of fuel. So, and this road right now is really busted up. And look at this. I mean, I'm smashing into this road, and this road is absolutely destroyed. This is probably going to be one of the worst roads you'll find to do a road test on and a car review on in the Northeast right now. It's completely destroyed. It's definitely more compliant, you know, than the Giulia Quadrifoglio. But like I said, we don't get the button here to change for the suspensions. And like I said, this touchscreen, it's kind of cool. I'm not really into it. I'm more of an analog type of person. I like things to be simpler and more analog. But like I said, there's nothing really wrong with it. It's just not something that it appeals to me. I'm more into the way the car is styled, the performance, the value, because that's really what you're going to do. I don't really have time to play around with all of this stuff every day. I did enjoy that on prior cars from AMG that I've owned and the BMW M cars that I've owned, but right now, don't really think I need it. So, you know, with that turbocharged engine, you know, it's got plenty of get up and go. We're, you know, going 80 miles an hour like that quickly. So you got plenty of passing power, and there's no issues. Now, another thing that I noticed versus my Stelvio, I didn't notice any of that throttle lag. I talked about it in my Stelvio review video. The one thing that I disliked about it, it has like a little bit of a lag, and sometimes that can get a little scary when you're making a turn and you have oncoming traffic coming towards you. But I mean, this thing gets up and goes. It has plenty of power. And if you guys want, you can do a piggyback tune, do an intake, and do a full exhaust, and you'll definitely be close to 400 horsepower in this thing, and it'll definitely give a lot of cars on the road a run for the money. But you can see it. I'm driving it one hand. It's sure-footed. I know the chassis. I don't feel like scary in the car. Like some cars I get into, you know, and you start driving it a little bit aggressive, a little bit fast, you don't really know how the chassis is going to react. But, you know, this car is so well designed and so well engineered that the handling is so predictable. It's neutral. It just gives you a confidence behind the wheel that makes you want to drive the car, you know, makes you want to take the longer way home. Now, right now, this is normal daily driving right now where I live. I can't do 140 miles an hour. I can't start revving it out. So in this real world scenario, the base model is going to give you the comfort and the handling and everything that you're going to want in a quadrifoglio, except it's not going to have the power and, you know, that awesome sound. But, you know, as far as driving enjoyment, you're still going to get a lot of driving enjoyment out of this car. You're not going to get into it and saying, oh, it's the base model, it sucks. You know, it really doesn't suck. This thing drives really, really good. Straight as an arrow. It's not wandering. You know, I had an Infiniti Q50 Red Sport, if you guys follow my channel, and that's one thing about that car. The front end was all over the road. You couldn't keep the car straight. I don't know if it was aerodynamics. I don't know if it was just the engineering of that car, but it's so terribly flawed that it forced me to get rid of it. And then going from that to the Stelvio was like a night and day difference. And like I said, when I did my first Stelvio review when I had a Misano Blue loaner car a little over 2 years ago. Actually, yeah, almost 3 years ago. And I fell in love with it, and I was like, that's going to be the replacement for the Infiniti. I knew it automatically. That's really what I wanted. But yeah, this thing drives really, really well. Now, the braking system, you know, it has the intelligent braking system, brake-by-wire. It doesn't have the best brake pads. You know, personally, for me, I like a little bit more of a grabbier, more aggressive brake. So you could probably check the aftermarket. They probably do make Tarox or EBC or Hawk. Somebody must make a pad for this car. And I would personally probably just put a different set of pads in the front. But like I said, this is a really sharp turn. And there's like no body lean at all. It's unbelievable how composed this chassis is. And you know, it's pretty much the base model. But once again, I'm missing the paddles, you know? So like I said, I probably would suggest if anybody's gonna go non-quadrifoglio, get the TI Sport, get the paddles. You know, I just think you would enjoy it more. You also get, you know, nicer braking system, and you also get the 5-hole wheels on those cars as well, and the better bolstered seats. Yeah, these seats, they're flat in the bottom. So the way I have the seat set up right now, I set the bottom bolster really, really low to the ground, so it kind of replicates how my Sparco seat is set in my Giulia Quadrifoglio. You're looking for the highest technology and the latest up-to-date tech, no Italian car is going to give it to you. Now, Ferrari, with the new Ferrari Roma, that's really trying to break the mold of bringing the Italian brands into that high-tech, you know, technology sector. But like I said, the German cars have more tech. The Japanese cars have a little bit more tech, depending on what what model you're looking at. Infinitis are just beyond antiquated and outdated. But like I said, this has the voice recognition. You have the touchscreen. It is what it is. But like I said, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'm more of an analog person. I want to talk about how the car drives. And this thing is solid. It doesn't feel heavy. It feels light on its feet. It's got plenty of power, and the front end is incredible. It really is. That's the best part of this car, is the front end geometry and how good this chassis is, that you could hit all these bumps, drive on these bad, busted New York roads, and every time you get in the car, it just feels confidence inspiring. And that's kind of like really what I like in a car, is when you get in it and you could drive it fast right away. You know, some cars, you could feel their limits real easily, whether it's the tire limits, whether it's the chassis. A lot of times the front end, you know, you'll go into a turn and you'll start getting this kind of a feedback going through the turn, and it makes you a little nervous because you don't know what the chassis is doing. Sometimes what's going on in the front doesn't really telepath to you as the driver what's going on in the rear, and that makes you a little less confident in pushing cars. Now, that's the thing, like with BMWs today, their steering systems, they're just so numb, and you don't really feel a lot of what's going on. They just don't feel right to me. And I think for an EPS, electronic power steering system, this is one of the best you're going to get. And the fact that you could get it in a car that's, you know, starts at 41 grand, and then you could top it out at the 88,000 mark for the Quadrifoglio models, it just shows you that, even though it's a base car, the modified version, the high performance version, doesn't really need that much tweaking when you start with a good platform. And that's really what it is. And a lot of times, like I was mentioning in the beginning of this video, you could get into the base model, like even on a Lexus IS, and then drive the ISF version, and there's like a huge difference between that base model and the ISF version. And with something like this, I notice a smaller overlap between this and the high performance version because the chassis is so good. So the geometry is the same, it's got the good subframes, it's just that solid monocoque chassis, and it's just a home run. And this chassis is going to be trickled in to other models under the FCA brands very, very soon. I think in 2022, Maserati is going to be using a derivative of this chassis. And I think that's going to be a game changer, because if Maserati puts this chassis in their car with that Ferrari V8, I think that's going to be a car that I'm going to be buying in the next 2 years. I'll tell you that now. It's nice to drive something updated. This is 3 years newer than my daily driver. And like I said, they didn't really do much. They didn't really do much to the car, except this little change down here and the touchscreen. But other than that, the bare bones of the car is so good to begin with when they developed this car. I mean, Alfa Romeo, when they came back to the United States, I mean, they really couldn't screw this up. They had to come up with something good, and they needed a good platform, and this really is what it is. And I was actually parked in town the other day, and it was hysterical. I actually should have videoed it with my phone, but this elderly couple was staring at my Quadrifoglio. They had to be in their 80s. They were the cutest little couple. They were holding their hands, and they were looking at my car. And I chirped the door to open it up, and they says, "Oh, this is yours." They go, "How do you like it?" I says, "I love it." They said, "We just got an Alfa Romeo, but we got the standard version all-wheel drive, and we used to own Mercedes and BMWs for 45 years. And what a difference." And it was unbelievable, like, to hear that from somebody in the age bracket of 80 plus years old, noticing how much better this car drives versus the Mercedes and BMWs that they've driven in the past. And it just shows you, and it kind of emphasizes, and what I talk about in all my content for the Alfa Romeo brand. And I know that I'm a pretty big social influencer for the brand if you're looking for a car that has those performance attributes. Now, if you're looking for a real cushy ride and all the bells and whistles with the highest tech, this is not the car you're ever going to want. It's never going to make you happy. This is really going to be cross-shopped with a BMW 3 Series, BMW 4 Series, a Mercedes-Benz C-Class, an Audi A4 or an A3. And I'm going to tell you right now, this thing is going to handle and drive a lot better than all of those cars. And it really becomes a matter of preference. Some people will prefer certain brands, basically, certain luxury brands like Mercedes, BMW, Audi. Certain people could connect more with that brand than maybe Alfa Romeo. Maybe people don't understand Alfa Romeo. Maybe they think of Alfa Romeo from 50, 60 years ago, and they don't really have a passion or understand the lineage that the Alfa Romeo brand and the DNA, hence the DNA nub here, is with, racing, for a hell of a long time. So that's really cool that, they brought the brand back to the States, and it seems to be doing well. And I think for what you could lease this for, you can lease it. It's got some, mediocre aftermarket support as far as tunes and piggybacks and exhaust. It doesn't have aftermarket support like any of the German cars. It never will. I just think that there's not enough companies that are going to invest in these cars because their production numbers are so much smaller than a BMW, an Audi, a Volkswagen, any of those cars there. But for whatever's out there, it'll give you the opportunity to kind of personalize the car with a set of wheels. You want to do window tint, you want to do a carbon, you could do a carbon rear spoiler, carbon front grille, mirror, any of that stuff you could buy aftermarket from Koshi. And you could pretty much take this base model car for 41 grand, jazz it up, you put, let's say, 6 or 7 grand into it, you have a hell of a much nicer car and a better driving car than most of the German rivals. And that's kind of what I want to emphasize in this video. Because, what you could lease this for, you could also lease an Acura, a Honda Accord. It just makes, even a Honda Civic 4-door, it doesn't make sense to go into something like that, which doesn't even have the race-inspired Giorgio platform that was co-developed with Ferrari engineers. It doesn't have that foundation. So those cars, I don't understand. I scratch my head sometimes when I see people and I hear people paying $550 a month on a lease for a Honda Accord, and I'm just like, what are you doing? You know, yes, they're reliable. There's no doubt about that, but I don't know. I would rather just spend my money more on driving pleasure. And, you know, the car's got a new car warranty. You lease the car for 3 years, and you be done with it. And if the car gives you any problems, like any car on the road today, don't think, you know, any of these Japanese cars are bulletproof like they were 30 years ago. They're made in America now. You know, they do have their own flaws and their own recalls and everything like that. So, you know, don't let little nuances and quirks of the Alfa Romeo brand ever steer you away from it, because, I mean, look at it. The car just feels so good. It feels so good that I could hug this highway as we have elevations and different, you know, inclines and declines and turns, and I have zero issues with my confidence. And I'm going well above the speed limit, FYI. But, yeah, it just feels great. And it's really windy today. So now if this car had any issues with wind noise, you would start hearing it in the audio. You hear like whole buffeting, you know, coming from the side glass. But no, this thing feels awesome. Actually, I'm gonna get off right here because this road is pretty fun. Like I said, I'm missing the paddles right now. Oh. And of course, I get in front of a slow driver in a Wrangler. But I gotta tell you, like I said, I'm gonna just enjoy my drive, but I wanted to conclude this video. You know, a lot of you guys have always commented in all my Alfa Romeo videos, like, what do you think of the base model? And for the most part, whether you email me directly off my website or off any of my videos, I always will respond back to you. That's my passion. I want to connect with you guys all over the world. I love talking about cars. And I really, if something that I do and something that I can influence you to go out and buy something that you maybe were a little hesitant on buying or you were just unsure of, you know, I love hearing the feedback. I love when you guys get me the photos. Hey, I just picked this up. It's a new Stelvio or a new Giulia TI Sport or Quadrifoglio, and I absolutely love that I was able to influence thousands of people all over the world in making them make that decision of purchasing that new vehicle. So like I said, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely consider the 2021 Alfa Romeo Giulia. This is, like I said, the base model. And go take one for a spin. And like I said, if you guys own one, if you've test driven one, post it in the comments below. Let me know what you think of the car. Let me know what other cars you cross-shopped, and let's all talk about this together, because I drive everything. Everything on the Creation I get to drive. All my friends have every car you could think of, and I'm always in and out of them, from everything new you could think of. And a buddy of mine has the new BMW M3 with the funky looking grille, and he's taking delivery in a couple of weeks. And I am definitely going to be doing a video on that, because everybody's going to be wondering, you know, what do I think about that car? And I had one of those. I had an F80 when it first came out, you know, a number of years ago. But you know, they're good cars. There's a lot of things about them that I wasn't really crazy about, and it's the motor. And I think, you know, if you're going to buy the ultra high performance version of any car, the heart and soul of that car is the motor. And coming very soon on the channel, there's going to be a full review of the new Maserati Ghibli Trofeo. That is a very special car. I think you guys are going to absolutely love it, and I cannot wait to show that on the channel, because that has a Ferrari V8, which is the derivative of the new Roma and the 488 motor. You guys are going to love that thing. It sounds incredible, and we're just waiting for a nice warmer day so I can take the car out and actually enjoy it. So, like I said, please subscribe to the Autofanatic channel. Stay tuned for more content, and thanks a lot for coming for the ride, and I will see you guys on our next car review video and other automotive content real soon.